On February 24, 2022, Russia invaded the neighboring country of Ukraine. The wail of air raid sirens became part of the fabric of life for more than 43 million people. In March 2023, representatives of Hands On Global make the difficult trip to Ukraine to provide aid. This marks the fourth trip the humanitarian organization has made since the war started. Meeting in Budapest, Hungary, are Valerie Hellerman, Tama Edelman, Kathy Evans, and Marita Calloway. With them are 20 suitcases of critical trauma supplies and limb-saving orthopedic equipment. Their destination? Hospitals in the cities of Mukochevo, Kyiv, and Zhytomyr. On a cloudy Saturday morning, Victor, the Ukrainian driver, arrives in Budapest to shuttle the women and their 20 suitcases across Hungary to the Ukrainian city of Mukochevo. Although it is in westernmost Ukraine, many have fled to the area to escape the warfare of the Eastern Front. However, Mukochevo is not immune to the direct conflict. The team's first delivery is orthopedic equipment to the surgeons at the Regional Children's Hospital. In addition to its mission to aid children, the hospital now treats adults for their war injuries. These surgeons also volunteer at a nearby military hospital. The team provides the supplies to the grateful surgeons, but do not linger. They are driven to a nearby rendezvous with Ukrainian volunteers. There they transfer a portion of the medical supplies to the volunteers' van. The newly loaded van immediately sets off to the war-ravaged eastern front of Ukraine. The team returns to visit the surgeons at the Regional Children's Hospital. There, they meet some of the patients requiring the limb-saving orthopedic equipment the team has provided. The surgeons discuss the complexity of saving damaged limbs. Air raid sirens blare during the visit. A new normal for Ukrainians, perhaps, but disconcerting for the visitors. The next destination, Svalyava and the Protez Foundation, a clinic where amputees are fitted for prosthetic limbs and put through intensive physical therapy. Protez was founded by brothers Yakov Gradinar in Minnesota and Petra Gradinar in Svalyava. The Protez Foundation brings Ukrainian civilian and military amputees to the United States for fitting of complex bionic prosthetics and subsequent physical therapy to learn how to fully adapt to them. The foundation fosters camaraderie and mutual support amongst the amputees, helping them heal, learn, and find restored quality of life. As the time comes for the team to move on, a decision is made to split up. Tama and Kathy travel to the city of Lviv, where they volunteer their services at an animal shelter housing pets displaced by the conflict. In a daytime excursion, Tama and Kathy come across a cemetery dotted with fresh graves. Around many of the graves are families mourning their dead. Here, a recent grave marking the final resting place of a 19-year-old is but one of many tributes to the fallen, and a sobering reminder of the loss the nation has suffered and continues to experience. Valerie and Marita take the rest of the medical supplies to Kyiv by night train. Air flight is not the only mode of transportation affected by war. A lengthy air raid siren sounds, locking down the train station. Finally, the siren fades, and passengers are allowed back into the station and to board. Valerie and Marita finally arrive in Kyiv. The city has persistent reminders of the battle. Bombed-out buildings, anti-tank obstacles, recurrent air raid sirens, evening curfews. There are various memorials constructed to the fallen civilians and the military. One element not on view is despair. Despite the hardships, people continue on with the daily demands of life. One of the coping mechanisms is technology. A popular smartphone app alerts users of incoming air raids, sometimes before the sirens sound. The app indicates where missiles have been fired from and estimates where they're heading. Users consulting the app know whether to hasten to an air raid shelter or to continue to enjoy their coffee. The first delivery of orthopedic supplies takes the duo over the Dnipro River to the Civilian Emergency and Trauma Hospital. There, Valerie and Marita are to meet with Dr. Denis Churi. Shortly after the invasion start, Dr. Churi collaborated with Hands On Global for several months at the internally displaced persons clinics in Chernivtsi. Dr. Churi's surgical schedule is such that Valerie and Marita wait until late that night before meeting him. The reunion is an emotional one, as Churi expresses his profound gratitude for the much-needed medical supplies.
Ja, de T-rods, thank you very much for your help, for really need this. So thank you. To help our warriors, to help militants, to help civilians. So thank you. You really do more for us than you can. Thank you.
Okay.
The next stop is Zhytomyr to deliver a large reserve of external fixators, orthopedic pins, and surgical nails and screws to the regional hospital. The highway from Kyiv to Zhytomyr is strewn with the somber remnants of war: bombed-out buildings, destroyed overpasses, and roadblocks. The Russian army came within a few kilometers, and the city was hit hard during the initial invasion. The town now provides refuge for many internally displaced persons from eastern Ukraine. Valerie and Marita are greeted by doctors Vitaly Kyomenko, Valeja Yakolev, and Viktor Perepelitsyn at the regional hospital. Necessity has molded these doctors into skilled war trauma surgeons. The hospital receives a train full of wounded civilians and military personnel several times a week. These doctors are repeatedly called upon to perform complex procedures to save lives and limbs. The replenishment of supplies is a godsend to the hospital. Hands On Global's goal is not only to deliver sought-after surgical supplies, but to gain understanding as to what other material and psychological aid is needed in future visits. Personal visits with patients provides crucial insight into the complexity of war injuries. Dr. Kyomenko and Dr. Perepelitsyn provide the visitors with a tour of the basement where a new trauma clinic was to be built. The doctors explain that the efforts and investments have had to be shelved. The sheer number of war wounded requires a full-time commitment of resources. The need for the facility is clear to Valerie and Marita. Hands On Global immediately reaches out to Nova Ukraine, a U.S. humanitarian organization, and arranges for a representative to come the following day to assess the situation. The necessity for the trauma center is obvious to the emissary from Nova Ukraine, and they agree to donate costly medical equipment and assistance to complete the trauma center. Zyana Solovyova is the translator for this visit. Solovyova is also the chairwoman of the Zhytomyr Community Foundation. Established in 2012, the Foundation's original goal was improving the quality of life in the Zhytomyr community. The Foundation's focus is now assisting the many thousands of Ukrainians who have fled here with housing, clothing, and food. Many of these internally displaced suffer from trauma, injuries, and the death of loved ones, as well as having lost their homes and possessions. The arc of their lives remains unknown as the conflict rages on. A closing statement from the Executive Director of Hands On Global.
Hello, my name is Valerie Hellerman, and I'm the Executive Director of Hands On Global. Our medical team has been to Ukraine 4 or 5 times, And our primary goal has been to provide medical care to the IDPs, which are the internally displaced people from the ongoing war in Ukraine. And we also deliver complex orthopedic equipment donated by Sign International Fracture Care, which is limb saving for many of the wounded. There's a lot of amputations, and this saves a limb, possibly. We also deliver trauma supplies to civilians who are actually soldiers on the front lines. Ukraine is an amazing place with amazing people who are very resilient. And I'd like to say that we worked with a woman named Yana from an NGO there, and we were amazed at the positive energy of all the people and how they went about life in between air raids and, you know, their loved ones being on the front lines. And she said that if they didn't maintain this lifestyle, their lives, that the enemy had won. Such resilience. When we were in Mukachevo delivering supplies to the Regional Children's Hospital, one of the surgeons referred us to a program called Protez. It was about an hour from Mukachevo, and it was a program for Ukrainians who had lost their limbs. And there were two brothers, a brother who lived in Ukraine and a brother, Yakov, who's a master prosthetist living in Minneapolis. So we went to Protez, and it was an amazing, positive place for amputees to learn how to use their prosthetics. And when I returned to the U.S., I went to Minneapolis to meet Yakov and the Protez Foundation. And there, those people who needed complex prosthetic devices were flown over from Ukraine, and it was an amazing place. It gave them their life back. It gave them a break from the war. And the prosthetics nowadays are amazing. In March, this last trip that we were on, we were able to go to Zhytomyr Regional Medical Center after delivering equipment to Mukachevo and Kyiv. And there we aligned with this amazing group of trauma surgeons who were just inundated with patients. And they took us on a tour of their trauma center, which was in need of repair and rebuilding. It was actually non-functional. And we were able to take a film of that and contact an NGO here in California called Nova Ukraine, which connected us with a representative in Kyiv who met us in Zhytomyr. And there was a film made about this trauma center needing financial assistance. And when we got back and submitted the film to Nova Ukraine, they sent equipment and are helping to rebuild it. And that was an amazing thing. Witnessing has been a big part of what Hands on Global does, so that we can tell you firsthand what it is we're seeing in Ukraine and what other countries we work in. One of the other things on this trip that was really amazing is some of our team stayed behind in Lviv and worked at an animal shelter. So there are many displaced people and many displaced pets. And they spent 2 weeks dog walking and just giving love to animals that were left behind because their owners had nowhere to go. So after this March trip where this film documents, we made 2 other trips to Ukraine to drop off more medical supplies, particularly the orthopedic supplies. And that was in 2023. And we're making plans to return. We've been in touch with both Sign International Fracture Care and the surgeons in Ukraine who are still really begging us to return soon. The need is so great for this equipment, and the war just continues to go on. And we just really have to keep the Ukrainian people in our hearts.